If there was ever a game as influential to my childhood as Mario, I have yet to find it. Maybe Dark Cloud, but that's a video for a different day. Mario games have been a constant for me, whether it be playing Mario 1 or Mario 3 on my aunt's NES back in like 2005, or Mario Galaxy on the Wii in a dark closet with my brother, just in the dark, which in hindsight was a weird thing for us to do, but you know, kids will be kids. Mario games have always been there for me. The Wii cemented my love for Mario games and Nintendo as a whole. My family didn't really get one until around 2010, so we were a little bit late to the party, but the Wii, regardless, was a big part of my childhood. Who could forget bowling on Wii Sports and then, throwing the ball into the crowd, or making your very first Mii with your family and friends? The games of this era are something really special to me. However, as I got older, my love for Nintendo and for Mario took a back seat. Not having a Wii U sort of really killed my enjoyment of Nintendo, although I would emulate some older games, like on the SNES or NES from time to time. It wasn't until the Switch came out, and by extension Mario Odyssey, that my love for Mario games would come back in full swing. During the first year of the Switch's life, I was buying every single major first-party Nintendo game that I could get my hands on, as well as some pretty reputable third-party ones. Games like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey captivated me and took up much of my free time during the latter years of high school. It's a time period that I look back on fondly, a time when I can remember the friendships I had, the entirely different world I was in, all of it. I'm thousands of miles away from my hometown, and yet I still find time to play Mario games. So when I saw the reveal trailer for Super Mario Bros. Wonder, expect me to call it Mario Wonder from here on out, you can imagine my excitement. The first new 2D Mario game in 11 years. This had to be great. Going into Mario Wonder, I had pretty high expectations. I watched very few trailers and tried my best to stay away from any spoilers. I wanted to relive that magic I felt as a kid playing New Super Mario Bros. Wii or Mario Galaxy for the first time. Of course, nothing can perfectly replicate that childhood magic. However, some things can create a new sense of wonder, get it, and enjoyment. For example, in other genres of games like survival sandboxes, Vintage Story provided me with a reasonable change of pace compared to Minecraft. While it will never live up to Minecraft and how influential it was on my childhood, it does provide a reasonable change of pace and offer a new experience that is really easy to get into. I think Mario Wonder is the quintessential Mario game. It has that classic wacky Nintendo charm, all while actually innovating above and beyond the past games. It takes some of the core mechanics in Mario and either spins them on their head or throws them out entirely, and I think it should be praised for that. Mario Wonder is to 2D games what Breath of the Wild was to 3D Zelda games, a complete transformation. Mario Wonder revolutionizes how we think about 2D Mario adventures and what they can look like. When I think about Mario games, I can't help but think about how exciting it would be to be playing them for the first time again as a kid. I recall how excited I was playing Mario Galaxy the first time. It changed my life. Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2 got me through some genuinely tough times. I like to think that there are kids out there right now who are experiencing Mario Wonder and falling in love with Nintendo the same way I did over a decade and a half ago with the Wii. I want to take today's video to explain why I believe Mario Wonder will cement itself as a modern classic and go on to be remembered fondly in the minds of so many people across many years. As the final act on my trilogy of 2D Mario games and the nature of art, I think it would be wise to wrap up the series and cover all my bases to make sure that I really nail down my exact thoughts on just how important Mario is for gaming, myself, and many others. But I also want to focus on why artistic drive and creativity is so important to society overall and how we should appreciate art and the artists just a bit more. So once again, let's overthink video games and talk about the importance of Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Mario Wonder is the first 2D Mario game to take us outside of the Mushroom Kingdom since Super Mario Land. And if I'm wrong about that, I'm sure some nerd, love ya, in the comments will correct me. This game takes place in the Flower Kingdom, a kingdom just bordering the Mushroom Kingdom. In the opening scene of the game, we actually see the Mushroom Kingdom in the background of the level on the left side. It's a tiny detail that I missed on my first playthrough, and I didn't really notice it until I played the game a second time. This new setting affords us totally unique, well, mostly unique themes for each world. Sure, we have the basic grasslands and snow and deserts, but they all look visually distinct from previous Mario games. It doesn't look like anything we've seen before. This is what the first 2D HD Mario game should have been. Something visually unique and spectacular to show off the artistic ability of the dev team, as well as the capabilities of the hardware it's running on. I think the decision to leave the Mushroom Kingdom is what gave the devs the creative freedom to make new and interesting designs, as well as new mechanics. Well, the snowy mountains in the Mushroom Kingdom look this way, so if we want to do something that way, we have to make sure that it's in another kingdom, because it wouldn't make sense that the land changed up so radically. I like this. It's a good excuse to try entirely new things. The divergence into freedom to try new things is everywhere in the theming of this game. I like that World 2 is a snow and cloud theme. It takes the traditional Mario themes and combines them with a twist. However, it's not the first time we've seen two world themes combined into one. New Super Mario Bros. 2 did this with its water and jungle worlds, as well as the mountain and the clouds worlds, which I think is pretty neat. Mario Wonder, however, is unique. It's not the two basic-ass Mario themes jammed together, it's a fresh spin on these new themes instead. They're different enough that I think it's actually new. Like I said, it isn't a simple smashing of already established environments, something actually new in a Mario game, something thematically new at that. World 3 is this really interesting cubic waterfall themed world. It's all sorts of bizarre and interesting to look at. World 5 is a swamp-like world that is just so terrific. However, even within the worlds themselves, we get to see a wide range of ideas at play. One level in the Petal Isles can look like this generic-ass water level, while another can be, well, whatever the fuck this is. And I think that's great. I don't know how to properly describe this level thematically, and I love that. Like, food? Maybe? It kind of looks food-themed, but it's so strange and different from anything we've seen in a Mario game. It's just downright delightful. Hell, this trend can be seen at the beginning of World 1. Yes, the first couple levels are pretty basic, grassy-esque levels, but suddenly we're hit with this autumn forest vibe and this sort of underground, dank environment level. There is a ton here in the way of variety, and I think Mario Wonder is probably the most visually stunning 2D Mario game yet. You would hope that every new game is more visually interesting, but hey, not all of them can be winners. I don't think it's exactly a hot take to say that Mario Wonder is probably the best 2D looking Mario game yet. It just gets a lot right in the visual department. For example, even though World 4 has a basic-ass desert theme, there's still a lot of unique charm throughout, taking on a more white sand as opposed to the traditional tannish yellow color that we're all accustomed to in Mario games. Beyond the visual department, Super Mario Bros. Wonder shakes things up in almost every single way, down to even the basic mechanics of Mario. Let's start off with the simple stuff, if you will. Playable characters. The sheer amount of characters on display here is amazing. You can play as the standard Mario, Luigi, Yellow, and Blue Toad, stuff we're pretty used to by now, but you can also play as Peach, Toadette, Daisy, along with 4 other colored Yoshis and Nabbit. These are all fantastic choices for playable characters. There's only ever 4 max players in local multiplayer, so having 7 options means more options for everyone to choose from. Nobody is forced to play as a certain character. I call these characters the main cast because they represent a traditional way to play the game. The remaining 5 characters, the Yoshis and Nabbit, are the easy mode of Mario Wonder. They can't take any damage from enemies, but they also don't use any power-ups. Additionally, other players can ride the Yoshis. I think all these character options not only break away from the traditional mold of Mario, Luigi, and 2 random-ass Toads, but also give players a ton of variety, really allowing them to feel right at home with their preferred choice of character. I, of course, spent most of my time playing as Luigi. I had to. However, I did try out the Yoshis and Nabbit just to get a feel of how they play, and it's pretty fun. The lack of power-ups does make things a little more stale and less challenging, but I can see why it's a good option for younger or newer players. Shout out to my girlfriend, who is not great at Mario, but she's trying her best. This massive character roster is refreshing. It's the biggest playable character roster I think I've seen in any Mario game, other than like Mario Kart, which that doesn't count. 12 playable characters is pretty insane compared to New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe having a total of 5. One downside of the system is that there are no Yoshis in levels themselves. I think Super Mario World had the best version of Yoshi, the different colors and the different power-ups and the ability to take them into most levels. Just no other game has come close to beating Super Mario World with Yoshis. Unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be any Mario Wonder Yoshi DLC, but it's a loss that I'm okay with considering the other new content this game has to offer. The story here is, well, generic Mario, but it does follow the newly established trend of switching things up and breaking tradition. Instead of Bowser kidnapping Peach, it seems he just fancied taking over Peach's castle so much in Mario U that he's just decided to become a castle in this game. Me too, buddy. Me too. I do think the Bowser castle looks a little silly. However, the overall presentation is pretty cool and cartoonishly evil enough for kids to enjoy. Bowser is a bad guy at a kid's game. I don't expect him to be some super terrifying villain with deep and poetic motivations. He just needs to be a goofy-ass villain doing some cartoonishly evil shit. But beyond the themes in the story, Mario Wonder diverts from the typical mechanical characteristics of Mario games on a fundamental and deep level. The biggest and most obvious example is the exclusion of the timer and the scoreboard. This isn't the first 2D game to not have a timer or a score, but it is the first one since the 1980s with Super Mario Bros. 2, unless I'm wrong again, in which case someone will correct me. These things are relics of the arcade days, and while it's fun to see how just high of a score you could get, I think Nintendo realized that nobody really cares about scores and timers. That's not why you come to Mario games. I find this change interesting because the last 2D Mario game, Super Luigi U, heavily utilized the timer in its mechanics. Each level had to be beaten in 100 seconds, meaning that each level was more stressful, faster paced. You didn't really have time to screw around or explore. Mario Wonder instead allows you to take as much time as needed. The devs realized that you can make platforming challenges fun and exciting without a timer, and I think that's great. On the one hand, one could argue that not having a timer kills a lot of the challenge of Mario Wonder, but to be honest, Mario Wonder kills a lot of the challenge by the nature of its platforming. It's a pretty easy Mario game. Normally I complain about something like this, but in this case, it just makes sense. The Switch is a really hot console right now, and as such, there are a lot of kids that play on it. I think making the game fairly easy is perfectly fine. If you want hard Mario levels, there's always Mario Maker 2 or The Lost Levels. There are places you can go for that kind of thing. That being said, I do hope we get like a Mario Maker 3 with a Mario Wonder theme. I think the community would take a ton of features from this game and push them to the absolute extremes. All it is to say is that Mario Wonder doesn't really need to be a difficult game. Yes, it has some difficult moments. For example, the very final level of the game gave me some trouble. Like, I lost like 30 lives, but after that point, I beat it pretty quickly. Other levels had me at a couple points, but nothing really had me worrying about a game over. Something Mario Wonder did keep from the old games is the power-ups. Mario Wonder brings back 3 power-ups from past Mario games, the Super Mushroom, the Fire Flower, and the Invincibility Star. Outside of these, the power-ups are entirely new, which is really refreshing. There is no Ice Flower or Propeller Mushroom, just all new stuff. And I'd like to take a moment to go through these power-ups and talk about what makes them great or not so great. Firstly, the elephant fruit. This is the one we've seen plastered all over promotional material for the game. Picking up one of these fruits turns your characters into elephant versions of themselves. In this form, Mario's fat ass can't fit through pipes as easily, but more importantly, he can hit enemies with his truck. He's a Cybertruck. But more importantly, he can hit enemies with his trunk or store water in it to give it to flowers. Mario is also just physically stronger in this form. He can move larger objects with ease and simply terrifies Goombas with his presence. Speaking of which, Mario Wonder has never really made me feel so guilty about stomping on Goombas. You can see the fear in their cute little eyes as a literal fucking elephant smashes them where they're about to be munched on. Overall, this power-up is pretty good. It definitely fits that wacky theme and new ideas that this game is so centered around, and I think it's great. Moving on, we have the Drill Mushroom. This one is very reminiscent of that drill power-up in Mario Galaxy 2, however this time it's built into Mario's hat. With this, Mario can take out enemies above him or climb into walls on any given level. He can also break objects in this form, allowing for some fun level design. Overall, I think this is the weakest of the new power-ups. It feels very situational. It's less of a power-up and more of a tool that is only really helpful to get through certain levels. In most Mario games, power-ups are meant to be these things that power up your gameplay, not really a tool to get through certain platforming challenges. And yes, I know the 3D games tend to beg a differ, but I said most games, okay? I just don't think the drill power-up is very useful outside of the levels that it's required in. That's not to say it's a bad power-up, it's thematically fun and serves as a sort of callback to Galaxy 2, which I appreciate, however it's just not really my thing. Finally, we get to my personal favorite power-up, the Bubble Flower. I see a lot of people saying this is the weakest of the new power-ups, but I think those people underestimate its power. The ability to shoot bubbles through walls and kill enemies is enough to make it stronger than the Fire Flower. Additionally, it can take out enemies that the Fire Flower just can't take out. Couple this with the fact that the bubbles it shoots can be used as platforms for Mario to jump on, and you have yourself a really strong and versatile power-up. All of this, plus Mario's admittedly cutesy pink outfit, makes it my favorite power-up of the game, and it's so fun to use. Overall, I think the new power-ups in the game are really strong features and a bunch of fun. They add a ton to each level, but beyond power-ups, the game introduces badges. These badges radically change how levels are played and are probably one of the best things Mario Wonder adds to the Mario franchise. Badges are abilities that the player can use by selecting one at the start of a level or after death. There are a total of 24 badges in Mario Wonder. Each one does something a little bit different. Some of these are as simple as adding extra blocks and gaps to make some jumps easier, or as wacky and interesting as making Mario entirely invisible to both enemies and the player. Invisibility may seem like overkill, but the challenge of making jumps when you can't see yourself is very frustrating sometimes, but very, very rewarding. Most of the other badges offer things to help the player or some wacky new mechanic that changes up levels. There is a certain genius to these badges mechanically that I don't think should be overlooked. Let's start with the first badge players will receive, the parachute cap. This badge essentially turns Mario's hat into a parachute that allows the player to glide down slower. It doesn't add any sort of vertical height, but it does allow for greater horizontal distance to be traveled while in air. This slower descent also allows newer players to more easily pilot their character while falling. What could have been a really tight jump is made into an easy, sweet glide down to the bottom. This is a really great option for a first badge. It's simple to use and it's simple to understand, giving new players something to help them out a bit. Aesthetically, I think it's just fun, and Mario's hat gets all puffed up in a cute way. Other badges are less useful and almost feel like a kind of joke. The spring feet badge makes Mario jump around almost uncontrollably. This doesn't make the game any easier, but rather serves as a challenge for players who are more experienced and want to try something new. What Mario Wonder may lack in difficult, challenging stages, it makes up for with unique and difficult badges. That's not a total one-to-one replacement if you ask me, but it's something to help us, veteran players have something new to tinker with. Like I stated earlier, I think badges are maybe the single best thing to come out of Mario Wonder. I think they should stick around for another game or two. They add a ton. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to see them overused, but they just have so much potential. I hate to see such a creative and fun mechanic thrown away after one game. Alongside badges come badge challenge stages. These first serve as little tutorials for your new fancy badge, but later on serve as extra challenges with a particular badge. These stages are entirely optional, but I think you're seriously missing out on some content if you're only playing the main stages. My personal favorite of these stages is the wall climb jump stages. The ability isn't one that I use too often, but Nintendo did come up with some really fun, clever ways to use this badge, which I think is cool. But what is my favorite badge? Which badge do I think is the best? I think it's gotta be the boosting spin badge. I don't know what else you'd expect, it's by far the most useful badge in the game. While jumping, players can press the R button to get a nice little spin for some extra height, or to turn the jump around in the opposite direction. This essentially gives Mario the ability to do like a double jump or like a 1.5 jumps. It offers both an increase in vertical and horizontal movement, depending on the situation the player may find themselves in. I don't think any other badge comes close to this one in terms of versatility and utility. To tie up this little section on badges, I want to say that I don't think there's a single bad badge to the game. There are some that I don't personally find useful, but I think every badge can be used by someone in an interesting or fun way. It just gives players more freedom in a Mario game that is already seemingly striving out for greater player autonomy. Mario Wonder takes a different approach to player freedom than most previous 2D Mario games. At many points, the player is allowed to free roam across the world map, similar to Super Mario 3D World. Honestly, I wouldn't really be shocked if some of the game's code was just ripped right out over there and copied into the other. There are sections in Mario Wonder where players are allowed to do stages in whatever order they wish. World 5 opens with a section of Nonlinear Courses. I think World 4 does too. You can pick whichever ones you want and then just go at them. I think this is a really nice change of pace. This is another one of those moves that redefines how Mario games are played. Sure, in other games you may have a couple branching paths that allow you to go to a couple different courses instead of just the one, but I don't think there's been a 2D Mario game that just lets you pick from a list of multiple courses and tackle them in any order you wish, or even choose to ignore some. That level of freedom in an otherwise linear experience adds a lot. And there's a lot of variety in these levels. You have your main stages, sure, but there's little shops that you can go to. There's these little puzzle stages that I swear to God are the death of me. And there's badge challenges like I mentioned earlier. There's a really clever balance here between player freedom and restriction with Mario Wonder. Now, I'm about to make a comparison that I realize is going to make no sense to anybody out there, but I honestly think that the Zelda team could learn from Mario Wonder. I have many issues with Tears of the Kingdom. In fact, I've made a video about that about a year ago. I still think it's a great game, but in essence, I think there were some points in the game that players were given a little too much freedom. There's an old saying for game devs that goes, players will optimize the fun out of your game if you let them. And I think Tears of the Kingdom in some ways falls into that trap, but perhaps that's for another video. Or you can just go watch the old one, whatever you want to do. Mario Wonder found that balance between player freedom and restriction. Sure, you could do some levels out of order, but not all of them. You'll still need to go through sequence of events and certain things to get badges or like the Royal Wonder Seeds. I think this nice balance is what makes for such an awesome experience overall. In terms of a 2D Mario game, this is probably the most freeing of any. You can do entire worlds out of order. You can do sections of worlds in whatever order you please, but the game isn't afraid to pull you back in and say, okay, if you want this thing, then you need to beat this challenge that we have set up for you. I haven't had enough time with the game yet to see if there are any real game-breaking badges or abilities, but I can imagine there are a couple badges that some pro has really pulled out and broken the game with. But I have yet to talk about Mario Wonder's single defining feature. That one thing that takes Mario Wonder from being a simply interesting new Mario game to a truly incredible one. I hope you know I could have made a pun here, but I chose not to. You're welcome. Let's talk about Wonder Flowers and Wonder Seeds. These are the main crux of the game. At the end of each level, the player will almost always get a Wonder Seed from a poplin at the house at the flagpole. This is just a nice basic reward for completing the stage. This ensures that new players can always progress. You see, in each level there is a Wonder Flower. These flowers do all sorts of wacky and incredible things to a given level. Some make Mario turn into a Goomba, others turn off gravity. There's just so much variety here. I never knew what to expect. You could be going through a cool cave in Mario Wonder only to have the level switched up entirely because of this single mechanic. In that sense, you rarely have an idea of what each level is going to bring for you. You could just be floating your way through space, or you could be a cube. There are just tons of ideas at play here, and it's really fun. These Wonder Flowers are technically an extra challenge for levels, however it is possible to go through the game without getting your hands on a lot of them. You have the option to avoid most of them if it really isn't your thing. That being said, you're not going to get every badge or every course beaten if you can't find every Wonder Flower and every Wonder Seed. Some Wonder effects are really fun, but I'll be honest, there are a few that just kind of suck. Like, I understand that this is a game made for kids and I'm a 23-year-old adult overthinking and applying stupidly complex meaning to a silly video game, but this one kind of just fucking sucks. In terms of hitting or missing, as the kids would say, I'd say like 9 out of 10 of these Wonder effects are a hit, but every once in a while Nintendo just hits you with some bullshit. For example, Mario turning into a Goomba was fun for like 5 minutes. As soon as I realized the Special World had another level where I had to play as a Goomba again, I loathed playing that level. I understand that the fun of this is the challenge of being a slow-moving and non-jumping creature, but I think I just found it really boring after the first time I did it. For the most part though, I found the Wonder effects to be genuinely fun and unique. For every slow-ass Goomba level or stupid hippo bouncing level, there were like 10 more unique and interesting Wonder effects to make up for it. And hey, while those effects may not be for me, you might find those Goomba levels fun. There's a Wonder Flower for everyone. Did that rhyme? Did I just make a rhyme? I think I just rhymed that. That's what Mario Wonder does best. It comes up with new ideas that try to include as many different types of players as possible. Everything from new enemies to new power-ups or new playable characters, Mario Wonder has all of it. It's an exciting and fun adventure that I think any Mario fan, hell, any gaming fan should try. And that's Mario Wonder. Sure, I could talk about boss fights being boring or complain about some other Wonder effects, but I really want to tie this trilogy together. Throughout this trilogy, I've underpinned the importance of art and expression and the different ways that corporations can tie artists down if they aren't careful. I think Mario Wonder is a return to form. In the 1980s, the teams developing Mario games were much smaller and much closer with smaller budgets. They had more freedom to do what they wanted because the higher-ups understood the importance of letting artists create. What's my basis for this claim? Nothing, I made it the fuck up. Anyway, looking at New Super Mario Bros. As a series shows a clear restriction on creative freedom from the devs. The devs weren't allowed to push the creative envelope. Mario games are cute. They have a generic bland style that is so easy for normies to get into. Mario needs to be something that everyone can enjoy. It seems to me that Mario Wonder signals a return to the realization that creativity and unique charm of Mario games is what brings people in. Each of the original Super Mario Bros. Games had their own creative and unique identities and mechanics. Mario 1 was the introduction, Mario 2 was the wacky sequel, Mario 3 was the return to form with massive expansion and improvements, and Mario World was the ultimate apex of what Mario could be. The new Super Mario Bros. Games kind of killed any innovation and creativity. What was once a fairly consistent trend of trying new things and never really repeating themselves in the same way had become the antithesis of what made Mario games so popular to begin with. That is to say, it was bland, boring, and repetitive. Mario games were always about the variety, and always about how each game felt different to play. At its core, Mario is about running and jumping, sure, but you cannot deny that the success of the first few Mario games was due to their creativity and novelty. That all stopped with the new Super Mario Bros. Series. While that series did bring some massive innovations with the first game, with Mario's movement and star coins, and simultaneous co-op with the Wii game, that was about it. They didn't really innovate as much as the previous games did. If you watch my Mario U video, you'll know that I get the sense that the new Super Series was plagued with the developers who wanted to do more, but the executives just wouldn't allow it. A similar thing happened with the Paper Mario series. The games went from being creative and unique and having cool and interesting characters to just standard Mario guys with little to no unique traits. Most Paper Mario fans consider the first two games as being the best, with Super Paper Mario being a decent follow-up, but everything after that game is kind of just not what the games used to be. And I think the new Super Mario Bros. Series kind of follows a similar trend. Generally, the first two games are considered okay by fans, but the other two are just generic and repetitive. Mario Wonder feels like a release of the creative restrictions the higher-ups at Nintendo had so tightly enforced. It seems to me like a response to the failures of the Wii U. The same generic styles won't work anymore. You can't rely on the same art style to sell a game. Sure, you can repackage it and sell it to a new audience that maybe didn't get a chance to, like they did with the deluxe version, but that pales in comparison to a fresh, new Mario experience. And that's what Mario Wonder is. A fresh, new experience. Since Breath of the Wild, several Nintendo franchises have gone through this rebirth stage. 2D Metroid came back, Pikmin finally got a new game, Mario's 3D games went back to their roots, and here with Mario Wonder, 2D Mario was shaken up to its core. One tiny detail that really sells me on this whole thing is the talking flowers. They're just so interesting. They fit weirdly well into Mario, but are totally unique in their execution. They're expressive, they're funny, they're memorable. These guys are at every level and add a ton to the game. I do like that Nintendo gives you the option to turn off their dialogue if it's just annoying to you or just feels so unnatural to have so much voice acting in a Mario game. Regardless, if there was any tiny detail to cement the importance of this Mario game, it's these tiny little fellas. They might just be my favorite thing about Mario Wonder. This all ties back to that question I posed at the beginning of this trilogy over a month ago. Do video games need to change? Does art need to change? I think the usage of need is a bit strong in that question. It pushes the idea that change is either something good or bad, necessary or unnecessary, when in reality, change simply is. Change exists. Nothing will stay the same forever. This has always been the case for everything in the universe. While it is simple for us to imagine ourselves as the end result of history and time, the reality is that we are not the result of thousands of years of history. We are a single part of an ever-evolving history. In the same way that you and I are pieces of an ongoing cosmic phenomenon, so too is art. It changes and evolves. 100 years ago, games were mostly sports, cards games, or shit like chess. Since the 1970s, digital games have taken off. How we play those games has evolved too. Every once in a while, there are turning points in gaming. Times when a game comes out that radically shifts the gaming landscape. In 1985, it was Super Mario Bros. In 1996, it was Super Mario 64. In 1998, it was Ocarina of Time. In 2007, it might have been Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. In 2017, it was Breath of the Wild and the countless other games in between. I don't think Mario Wonder quite reaches that level of shifting the gaming landscape forever. However, I do think it represents a shift in Nintendo in the future of Mario games to come. I'm very excited to see what art Nintendo comes up with next. 2024 has been a pretty dry year for them so far. It makes me excited to see what they've got coming. I'd love to see a new 3D Mario game on a console with much better specs than the Switch. For now, I ask you this. What about Mario Wonder makes it such an incredible piece of art? For me, it's the little details, the animations, the music, the talking flowers, and all the things that we sometimes take for granted in games. My favorite part about overthinking video games is finding the smallest details and thinking about how someone took the time to make it. Whether it be a tiny texture on a background object or a subtle animation an enemy does in time with the music, I just love seeing it. It's some of my favorite things to look at in a game. So, what do you think of Mario Wonder? Is it the big new revolution of Mario, or is it just another simple step forward? I'll leave it to you guys in the comments. For now, I suppose I'll go back to playing silly block game and coming up with new ideas for videos. To end this series, I'd just like to say that even though these videos have done pretty poorly in terms of views, every comment left on them has been really encouraging and really kind. I know I've expressed frustration in the past with how it can sometimes feel like my art isn't as valuable if fewer people watch it, but if you're here listening to this, then that means you care about my content quite a bit. Or you got roped into watching a Mario video and sucked into a discussion about philosophy and art, in which case, I'm not sorry. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Seriously, it means a ton to me. I know this video probably won't get a lot of views, but for those of you who do view it, I hope it's good. I hope you learned something new about Mario games, or found some appreciation for art that you didn't realize that you had. Whatever it is, I hope you got something out of this video and out of this trilogy. As always, you should like and subscribe. Consider becoming a member, as it helps me get a more stable income each month. You also get early access to videos, live stream VODs, and your name at the end of my videos. YouTube revenue can be very up or down, with no real way of knowing what next month is going to keep you afloat or not. So becoming a member helps me a ton in that regard. Regardless, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye bye!